Did I ever tell you the definition
of insanity? Is something you've probably been asked a number of times if you've played the topic of today's video. But I don't want to talk so much about the game itself. I don't really want to talk about the franchise it comes from necessarily. I want to talk about the guy who delivers that line. Someone who transcends the bounds of the medium they were created for and in. Someone who to this day still tops charts of best written and performed video game characters. And not just villains, but characters overall. This is an amazing character, so allow me to talk for a while about Vaas Montenegro. If you look at the cover art of Far Cry 3, you see Vaas front and centre sitting on a beach, and we'll get to more about that beach later on. So you might think he's the protagonist. This is what people did at the time and still do to this day. There's a protagonist front and centre on the game cover. But no, you learn very early on, straight away in the game pretty much, that this is not a funny, friendly person that you're going to guide on an adventure. This is an antagonist. So maybe he's the big bad. Well, about 60%, give or take, depending how you play it, you will find that you kill this man. This man will no longer exist in the game at all anymore. And you will actually go on with the remainder of the game facing off against his boss and his cronies. The game does give you some extra tools and things like that afterwards, but a lot of people feel that the joy and the main drive to continue playing has kind of gone. Unless you want to just complete the story, which, yeah, you've paid for it, you may as well complete it. But really, a lot of the great parts of the game and a lot of the fun interactions with the bad guys are in the first 60% or so. And, he's well written. This is a well written game. The story's a bit by the numbers in places, and there's some things that might not hold up so well and some things that could have been changed. But Vaas Montenegro, as a character, is brilliantly written, and I adore the writing. Don't get me wrong. But it would be nothing without the talent of Michael Mando, the French-Canadian actor who we also might know as Matt Gargan, aka the Scorpion. But his performance just imbues Vaas with this fun. I don't think he'd be anywhere near as engaging, and he wouldn't have captured the imagination of so many people without the good performance behind it. Now I said I'd talk about this beach because there was a great web series that was released to promote the game called the Far Cry Experience, where in the premise of it, Christopher Mintz-Plasse was doing a sort of promo thing for Ubisoft and sort of going to the island where Vaas and his pirates were and just, sort of being a Bear Grylls type, but not really. And of course he gets kidnapped by Vaas and tortured, and there's a whole thing where Vaas is pretending to the audience that they're deciding what's going to happen to Chris. And it's just quite a fun, sort of web series that helps promote and sort of sell the game world. But even in that, Michael Mando's performance is exactly the same as in the game. And I think that says a lot. There is, by the way, an achievement if you find Christopher Mintz-Plasse's body in-game. So they kept it canonical. But I've always said that, games are an art form when done right. They can just be simple turn your mind off things as well, that's fine. But games can be as respectable as TV, a movie, a play, a book, in the right hands. And this game, or at least this character, is in the right hands. To elevate a game to those kind of levels, you have to have someone who understands that voice acting is two words: voice and acting. And Michael Mando gets it. This is a man who puts as much in his physical performance as he does in the vocal performance, and you can tell. He becomes Vaas whenever he's there. I just love the fact that his performance, his portrayal, and the writing, etc., but all of that meant that he was front and centre on the box art, not Hoyt, the actual big bad, the guy who's funding him. In the following entries in the series, We've not had that. We've had Pagan Min, and we've had Joseph Seed. We haven't had, Faith, or, well, I suppose we did have the family, but we haven't had sort of, any of Pagan Min's lieutenants. But it's interesting that I don't like all of the Far Cry gameplay. I have tried to play Far Cry 3 all the way through a number of times, but the whole, get the radio tower, then some outposts, then do this and that, just kept feeling like a chore. It's more like busy work to pad out the runtime. But I kept wanting to go back to this world because of how well it was done. I've tried to play through Blood Dragon, and I think it's leaning on 80s movie, action film tropes. Just isn't as engaging as I'd like, and also the dragons terrify me. I've tried to play through Primal, but I don't want to read through all the subtitles every time I'm trying to figure out what's going on with the plot. And again, it's not anything too different gameplay-wise. Even the survival mode's not a massive, massive difference. Far Cry 4, as much as Pagan Min is a fun character in a lot of ways, it again just didn't grab me. I like the terrain, I like the world there, but again, there's a lot of just busy work. Far Cry 5 ditching that busy work was an interesting idea, and the idea of this cult out in Montana, fascinating. This is a world that a lot of people are probably more familiar with, at least in the Western Hemisphere, that, it's something that we can, sympathise with more. We can understand that world better, because more of us have probably experienced something like it. But again, there's a lot of nonsense that I just couldn't get past, and the villain isn't engaging enough for me. I need to have a story that grabs me. I need to have something that keeps me wanting to plug away, even when I make that realisation that this is just a bunch of busy work, isn't it? I need something that says, yeah, okay, it's busy work, but come along for the ride. Enjoy this world. Come along with us. Have fun, butting heads against the antagonist. And no Far Cry since has given us a Vaas Montenegro. And like I say, that's to the writers, to Michael Mando, to everyone involved. They did such a good job of that, and I respect it. But we are on the cusp of a new entry into the series, and I'd have massive respect for Giancarlo Esposito. At the time of Far Cry 3's release, Michael Mando wasn't so much of a household name as he is now. A lot of people will know him through Better Call Saul, Spider-Man like I mentioned before, etc. But Giancarlo Esposito has a massive body of work behind him, one recent entry being Once Upon a Time, which I'm watching through at the moment. And we know this guy's acting chops. The trailer is making me think we've got another Vaas on our hands potentially here. That is if Anton is, again, the bad guy all the way through. They could do that to us. I don't think Ubisoft are stupid. I think they know that the peak of the series, to a lot of people, was the first 60% or so of Far Cry 3. And there are people who love the other games, and that's fine. I'm not saying you shouldn't love those other games. But I don't think anyone can say that Vaas is not one of the greatest characters ever written and performed. So I'm cautiously optimistic about Far Cry 6. Will I get it upon release? I haven't got any of the others at the moment of release, so I'm not going to buck the trend. And again, there's some elements of the gameplay that I'm not a massive fan of. But I do like open world games, and I like first person shooters to a degree, but I like the fact that, there are skills that you can acquire along the way. I don't just like getting better at the game, I like skills that allow you to do that. Allow you to do more with the world. I like upgrades, I like RPG systems. So if Far Cry 6 can do that, if it can give me another well-performed, which I know it will be, but well-written character, and a world and a story that keep me hooked, I might get it at some point, maybe 8 years after its release. So in 2028, when I do a video on Far Cry 6, you can come back to this and say, yes, you were right. If in 2028 I don't do that, well, maybe it wasn't as good as I'd hoped. But that's all about Far Cry, and particularly Vaas Montenegro, that I want to talk about today. I'll try and do another non-game, because I feel like I've done a few games in a row again, so I'll try and find something different next time. But until then, as always, thank you for watching, and take care.
Did I ever tell you the definition of insanity?